report.
I didn't even admit it, notice to start the camera.
I thought you had a sore finger.
Now the camera starts to its back to it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pledge allegiance, participation, business. Do we have any more business? Any other business?
We have some new frame rentals, if you want to touch those.
Sure, go for it.
Okay. First one is, this is for a children's birthday party on August 5th, 2018, arriving 9 a.m., departing 5 p.m. No liquor, maximum number of people, 40. Next one is a kid's birthday party on August 4th, 2018, arriving 9 a.m., departing 12 p.m. No liquor, number of people is 35. And the third one is a picnic, July 14th, 2018, arriving 9 a.m., departing 3 p.m. No alcohol, number of people is 49.
Good time.
Yeah. 6:35.
Okay.
You can do accept it.
I'll make a motion that we approve and sign maintenance warrants for fiscal year 18, 77, 78, and 79, and fiscal year 19, 1, 2, and 2 and 3, 2 and 3.
I will second the motion.
All in favor?
I'll do a discussion first.
Want to do a discussion?
I don't know.
Oh,
I just second the motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain? Any nays? Aye.
Okay.
Make a motion that we accept departmental reports.
I second. Just thinking.
Huh?
I was thinking before I said I second it.
You second it? That one, I have to do that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I have one more thing here. We had a MOU, memorandum of understanding with the town of South Hadley, as we did not have a fully certified building commissioner in the town of Granby. We still don't have a fully certified building commissioner, but we do have the local building inspector who was in the process of getting a certification. So I'd like to enter into this MOU with the town of South Hadley for fiscal year 2019, so we can have some building compliance with the law. And does the board wish to sign it, or would you like me to sign it on behalf of the
You can say it on behalf of the board if you'd like.
board? Okay. And this will be from July 1 of 2018 to June 30th of 2019.
What does he do to pass his?
I know he took the first phase test, he passed it, and then I think the next one is probably, I think, October, November of this year. There's like 3 sections he has to do. And then he has to continue going to annual schools and things of that nature. So it's probably about an 18-month process to really be able to pass the law. Because they're held in Milford only on a certain period of time. Now, Mr. Chairman, will it now be 6:35? I believe you do have a bylaw hearing, bylaw change hearing.
then you need to call order. Okay. 6:35.
Does the planning board wish to
The planning board?
come to order also? Seeing how as a joint meeting of the planning board and the board of selectmen?
Yeah, the planning board, call the meeting to order, 6:35 on July 10th.
Okay.
Do you want me to read, or do you want to read, or?
You can read it.
Want to read the public hearing?
Yes.
That's fine. 6:35, public hearing for the town of Granby. The Board of Selectmen, Town of Granby, pursuant to bylaws of the Town of Granby, Chapter 9, Section 2, and Granby Planning Board, pursuant to provision of Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5, will hold a public hearing to present and discuss proposed amendments to the Town of Granby general bylaws and the Granby zoning bylaws. The subject matter of the proposed amendments is as follows. Replace 10 West State Street, the COA building. Today's date, Tuesday, July 10th, 2018, at 6:35 p.m. The general bylaws, the subject,
Will be easy to read now.
a little bit easy, bigger print. General bylaws. The subject matter of proposed general bylaws amendment is in regard to, 1, to delete from the bylaws of the Town of Granby, Volume 1, Chapter 27? 17. Section 7, temporary marijuana establishment, moratorium, and insert Chapter 17, Section 7, marijuana establishment ban to consist with Mass General Law, Chapter 94G, Section 3A-2. All types of marijuana establishments as defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 94G, Section 1J, to include all marijuana cultivars, marijuana testing facilities, marijuana product manufacturers, marijuana retailers, or any other types of licensed marijuana-related businesses shall be prohibited within the Town of Granby. This section does not apply to personal use of marijuana or growing marijuana at a residence or as permitted by law, nor to medical marijuana treatment centers as defined in Section 5.9 of the zoning bylaws. Zoning bylaws. The subject matter of proposed zoning bylaws amendments is in regard to 1, amending Section V, special use regulations and performance standards by adding the following under Section 5.12, cannabis retail, growing, and distribution. 5.12.1, cannabis retail, commercial will only be allowed in the general business. 5.12.2, no closer than 500 feet property pin to straight line to a public or private school to include any licensed daycare. 5.12.3, this is subject to special permit and site plan approval by the planning board. 5.12.4, commercial growth operations shall be indoor facilities only and allowed only in industrial 1 business park overlay district with site plan approval. 1, amending Section 3, use regulations, subsection 3.0, schedule of use regulations, Table 1, schedule of all use regulations by adding a new land use classification, retail and services. Cannabis retail operation, allowed by special permit with site plan approval by the planning board and general business only. Number 2, amending Section 3, use regulations, subsection 3.0, schedule of use regulations, Table 1, schedule of use regulations by adding a new land use classification, wholesale, industrial, transportation, commercial growth operation, allowed by special permit with site plan approval by the planning board in industrial district and industrial district 2 only. Anyone wishing information or to be heard of this matter should appear at the time and place designated. The complete text relative to this proposed amendments is available for inspection during regular business hours at the Board of Selectmen's office in the Senior Center, second floor, 10B West State Street, Granby, Mass., and the Town of Granby website, www.granbymass.gov.
Just so that everybody here knows, there was a secondary Table 1 change in case that a proposed potential special election ballot passes to ban retail recreational marijuana in the town of Granby, that a new table would be created under retail services, cannabis retail operation, no in all zoning districts, and under wholesale, industrial, transportation, commercial growth operation, no in all zoning districts. So, does the board wish the police chief representing the marijuana bylaw review committee? Would you like him to make a brief presentation?
Yes, I would.
Would you like me to get out of the way?
No, okay.
So I know that some of you have already seen this, probably most of the people have probably already seen this or some version of this, but I've kind of whittled it down to where we are today. So just to give you an idea of
Chris, you want the camera on this?
how we got to where we are, what we're going to do, what suggestions are for the town in terms of retail/commercial marijuana. So who's been involved? Basically, it started with the Board of Selectmen, where most things do start. It involved, we appointed the Marijuana Ad Hoc Committee, which is members from different areas of town. There was input from the Board of Selectmen, also the Bylaw Review Committee. The Planning Board was also involved, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we reached out to the Board of Health as well. Just to give you an update as to where things stand right now, when the retail/commercial marijuana law was voted for, Granby was a yes community. We voted 54% for the law, 46% against. Since then, the town adopted, like many other towns and municipalities have, a temporary moratorium against the sale of marijuana in town that runs through November 30th of 2018. The goal of the charge somewhat of the Marijuana Ad Hoc Committee is basically just to make regular recommendations about what options are available to the town and what types of localist guidelines should we be looking at. Can everybody hear me okay? One of the things that we came up with after speaking with different groups was a tentative timeline. This was edited as recently as today. We're having a public hearing today. There is or will be a special town meeting, a ballot vote, special town election, I guess you would call it, somewhere around August 2018. And then, depending on how things go, a special town meeting on the 27th of August. That all backs up to the temporary moratorium expiration date. Regardless of what the town does, whether we have a ban, whether we allow retail sales or grow operations and handle it with zoning regulations and bylaw regulations, we really want to have that in place before the end of the moratorium. If we don't, then there's no regulations, the town can't benefit in terms of any sort of taxes or anything like that. So all of those dates kind of back up to that temporary moratorium, and built in there is that 90-day grace period that gives the Attorney General's office the time that they require to make sure that they approve or deny anything that we have. So that's the timeline that we came up. Like I mentioned, what's been done so far, the town voted for that zoning temporary moratorium, effective the 30th of November. And it just gives us the town the time to address any of the particular needs that may need to be addressed and find out what our ultimate goals are and some sort of comprehensive regulation or prohibition if that's what the townspeople desire. So what else can be done should the town choose to? And there's a wide range here that starts with a temporary moratorium. And it ranges anywhere from a complete ban on any sales or growing operations, down to, or up to the limit of doing nothing at all. So that's really the kind of line or the amount of things, area that we can do things with. So like I said, there's the absolute ban, things that we handle with general bylaws, quota limitations. What that refers to is the town has the right to say, okay, we only want X amount of retail shops in town. And depending on what the town decides they want to do, if we limit that to less than 20% of what the open alcohol permits are, then it's a two-step process, and I'll get into that in a minute. And a lot of the process for us as a town is guided by law differently from towns that voted against it. Because we voted for it, it's a little bit more of a stringent process for the town. Should they choose to ban it, or should we choose to limit either quota limitations, like I just mentioned, or type limitations? And what that means is, if the town were to say, you know what, we don't want retail, we want grow operations only, or we only want retail, and we don't want grow operations. So if you try to limit any one of the types of establishments that were mentioned when it was read, that's where we get into that situation where it's a two-pronged test, where we would have to do it at both the special election and also for a special town meeting. So a ban, a quota limitation, meaning that 20% issue, or a type limitation, gets us into that category where we have to do both. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Okay. Again, there would be zoning bylaw restrictions, the where, the what, and the how. Where are we going to allow it? What are we going to allow? How is it going to be allowed? By permitting the whole 9 yards. The Board of Health can have regulations in terms of licensure, as can the selectmen with rules and regulations surrounding licensure. One of the other things that the town can do is, if we do allow retail sales, is you can tax up to 3% of the gross sales, all right? And then one of the things that is required, if you don't allow any of these establishments in the town, is a host community agreement. That's required by the law. And those host community agreements can have an additional 3% fee attached to them as well. Those fees, or the funds collected from those fees, have to be justified coming back to reasonable costs for the town in terms of implementing whatever rules, regulations, or procedures are needed to be a host community. The thing that you should know about the host community agreements is they expire in 5 years. I don't know why. So we talked about what we can do, and getting back to the issue of how we do that. The process to prohibit or limit marijuana establishments, like I said, is dependent upon whether the town initially voted for the law or didn't vote for the law. We voted for the law, like I said, by 54%. Consequently, the process to prohibit or limit is that two-pronged approach, which I've already kind of spoken to. Again, it would be with bylaws, it would be a majority vote. I believe the zoning bylaws are two-thirds vote. Is that right? And then if we limit it, like I said, past that 20% or that type limitation, ballot approval as well. So in other words, it's another special town election. I talked a little bit about host community agreements, but basically I just mentioned exactly what that means. If the town decides to go along the route of regulation and allowing it, we have to come up with host community agreements. In other words, telling these businesses, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, this is what we're going to expect you to do, the whole 9 yards. Like I said, it allows for assessment of those community impact fees up to and including 3% for the gross sales, which is completely different, and 3% for that the host community fee. Those fees, that 3% fee, has to be justified back to the actual costs on town. And it doesn't have to be 3%, nor does the gross sales tax. It can be anywhere up to either one of those. Okay. I already mentioned about the sunset of the 5 years of the host community agreement. It does go away, and the costs have to come back to some reason for the town having those costs for the marijuana facility. Some other things that this group looked at were some public consumption bylaws. So I'll get back into those in a second. So the suggestions that the group came up with to the Board of Selectmen was to take a two-pronged approach, because we can look at how the town voted for the law in general, in terms of Massachusetts. But what we don't know, and what we don't have, is a strong understanding of what the people want for the town of Granby. There's a lot of people who might say, yeah, sure, let it in. But there's also people who say, I'm for it being legalized, but I don't want it being sold in Granby. It's just a different tier. So we don't really have a way of kind of gauging that interest. So to give the power to the voters, we had suggested a two-pronged process. One was to put forward some sort of ban on all recreational commercial operations, and also with that, come up with a plan from planning that addresses the issue from a zoning standpoint. So if we are going to allow it, where are we going to allow it? When are we going to allow it? How are we going to allow it? And so we've decided to put both of those options forward. That way, if the town votes for a ban, then the zoning regulations don't matter. If the town votes against a ban, then the zoning regulations would be in play. What the town really doesn't want to do is be in a situation where they're only given one option, you vote that option away and you have nothing. You have no regulations, you have no control either way. That's a situation that we really don't want to be in, whether you fall on the side of a ban or regulation. If anybody's curious, this is a document that was provided to the Board of Selectmen. It just talks a little bit, it's an example of what ban wording would look like should the Select Board decide to put that information on the ballot. It's just it's a typical type of ballot question that you would see. The first part is the question, and the second part is just a summary of what it would be. And then the second part just talks a little bit about the general bylaw piece of that. And then, and I'm going to put out a disclaimer. While the zoning board was part of the process and coming up with the decision, when we did this, part of the general bylaw committee, we got into the ban piece of it that somewhat references, does reference the zoning bylaws, which we have absolutely no authority to do. That falls squarely on the planning board, which at some point here I'll ask to see if someone from the planning board wants to speak to that. So that was just a ban option that was being presented. And then the other piece of it, the second option, was basically with the authority of the planning board. Is there anybody from the planning board that wants to talk to that, or I can go through it a little bit?
The zoning piece of it?
Yes.
Yeah, the board discussed it, and if it is passed to proceed with the second prong, that we decided to treat it like a retail on the commercial side, which would be allowed in business zone. It would require a special permit, which would require a hearing so that abutters could be heard, and then site plan approval. And that's as far as our purview goes in regards to that. Now, as far as commercial growth, manufacturing and distributing would be only allowed in industrial and in the overlay business park, which is zoned over there on New Ludlow Road. And again, that would be subject to special permit. So we have a hearing and then site plan approval. It's pretty simple. There's other examples already in the zoning bylaw that speaks to it. So it's treating it the same as any other.
So that was the planning board's bigger piece of it as well. Some of the other things that we looked at was, should the town go in the direction of regulation, in other words, allowing it and regulating it with zoning bylaws and general bylaws. One of the things that should really be looked at is the law that we need to accept to be able to propose a tax on local retail sales. So if the town goes by way of regulation, the town will, if they want to, or if we want to benefit from that 3% sales tax, or up to 3% sales tax, the town has to accept Mass General Laws 64N, Section 3, I think that's what it is. That's to impose that excise tax or sales tax on marijuana establishments. So that was another thing that we looked at that the town should consider, or the select board should consider as well. One of the other things that we talked about was a public use bylaw. Switching it away from marijuana for a second. Everybody knows that alcohol is legal to some extent. Kids under 21 can't. But it's not legal to drink in public in Granby. And so we do have a public consumption or public use bylaw for alcohol. And what a lot of other jurisdictions are doing, what a lot of suggestions have been, is that there should, regardless of what happens, there should be a public use bylaw as well. So regardless of whether there's a ban or regulation or nothing whatsoever in terms of retail sales, we should have something that prohibits public use of marijuana. So that's one of the things, that's another thing that we suggested, and I can give anybody who wants copies of this. Again, that will mimic, in fact, not only will it mimic, it would be almost exactly what we suggest for a new and improved alcohol consumption bylaw as part of a larger bylaw review committee thing that we're working on. We decided that we found one for marijuana that we like so much. We're actually suggesting that when the rest of the bylaw come due again, that we change the alcohol bylaw to match this marijuana use bylaw. Public use bylaw. So again, some of the next steps for the road to town meeting is we have to keep in mind that temporary moratorium isn't going away, it's going to expire. I will tell you that there has been some information from the Attorney General's office that in some circumstances will allow the extension of a temporary moratorium past that, but that's going to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. That just happened within the last 2 or 3 weeks. And one of the things I wanted to mention was, regardless of what we do, whether we ban retail and commercial sales or we regulate it, some of the things that are not going to change. Residents can still grow and possess their own marijuana in their home. That's set by state law. We can't regulate that in, we can't regulate that out. We can't stop somebody from driving through town with marijuana. We can't stop somebody from walking down the street with marijuana if it's within the legal limits of what they should have in their possession. None of that's going to change. Possession is still not illegal. And the last thing is medical marijuana can't be restricted locally. There's nothing that we can do in terms of medical marijuana. There's exemptions all over the law. So regardless of what we do, people can still grow and possess for their own purposes in their home. Possession is not going to be illegal. Transportation is not going to be illegal. And there's nothing that's really going to touch medical marijuana. So that's kind of where we are to this point. And if you have any questions?
You want to open it up?
Yeah. Anybody have any comments? Make a statement?
What is the,
No.
what does the police department feel is there'll be a...
Can you state your name and your address?
Sorry, Giselle Livingstone, 99 Astor Street, Granby, Mass. What does the police department feel that this will do to the town if it was approved for retail sales? Will it impact, how will it impact the police?
The reality of it is, I don't know. I don't think that anybody here in Massachusetts knows yet, really, because it hasn't happened. I think that's some of the weariness of it, is we just don't know exactly what's going to happen. Some of the things that usually get talked about in terms of negative effects, right? We can all talk about what the positive might be in terms of some possible potential tax income. But some of the negative consequences that are usually discussed in terms of these things, traffic, the use of marijuana while you're driving, things like what's the cost going to be to implement it, what's the cost going to be to the town for licensure, those types of incidents. I don't have any proof of any of these because it hasn't happened here in Massachusetts. So do I have some concerns? I do, I think like everybody else does. But I can't answer your question 100% and say, this is what's going to happen if we do this, and I'm not going to, not going to make something up about that.
Some of those same concerns could be realized whether we do it or not, just because it's been legalized in the state.
And that's absolutely true. So, you know, the same concern about hypothetically people driving more frequently while under the influence of marijuana isn't going to be completely curbed just because we ban it in Granby. Someone can certainly drive, someone from Granby can drive to East Hampton, buy it, and drive back to Granby, smoke it, and drive back to Granby, and we can still have the same impact. But, you know, I guess the question really becomes, what do we want here? What do we want to try to control what we can, or do we not? And those are the questions that the select board's going to have to put forward. And generally speaking, you know, it's going to come down to a vote of the people, or the residents of town, to find out what they want to do and what they think is more important.
Any other comments, or
I guess not.
so you're going to close the hearing?
Okay, we can close the hearing.
You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion.
We have a second.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so one of the things that the Board of Selectmen will have to do, if we are to consider a ban or prohibition of retail marijuana establishments in the town of Granby, is to schedule a special election. We have to give the town clerk at least 35 days notice prior to a special election. I put together a proposed ballot question in conjunction with Al. And basically the question would be, shall the town prohibit the operation of all types of marijuana establishments as defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 94G, Section 1, including marijuana cultivators, marijuana testing facilities, marijuana product manufacturers, marijuana retailers, or any other type of licensed marijuana-related businesses within the town of Granby? Yes, no. This is something the board will have to vote on, sign it, and submit it to the town clerk so she can schedule the special election. The special election will be scheduled is being proposed for Monday, August 20th, 2018.
Date-wise, can that be pushed out, or are we up against the calendar?
The problem is the calendar. 90 days to November 30th, we have to have it in by September 1st. Everything has to be done. The ballot question, the town meeting, everything has to be done before September 1st to give the AG's office their 90 days to review any proposed bylaws.
On this ballot question you just read, Chris, for clarification, should the beginning is all commercial operations? You just say all operations in
We
the...
just said prohibit the operation of all types
Right.
of marijuana.
Well, we can't limit private, and I don't want the people confused that we're limiting private, because we can't. That's why I'm just
But
asking.
usually, any of the marijuana establishments that we indicated require licensing.
I understand that. I just didn't want the people to be confused that they're voting down commercial, they're not voting down their private rights, because we can't take them away anyways.
Well, their homes aren't considered establishments.
But when people read stuff, I just want to be sure they're clear, they know what they're reading, because some of the people complain they didn't know what they were reading the last time.
Good point, Jay.
I'm just throwing it out there and see what sticks. Whatever the majority wants to do is fine with me. What do you think, Al?
I think, you know, if this is something that makes it clear, I don't think that can be a bad thing. I think that sometimes wordsmithing gets a little tough because
Right.
you make one change and sometimes it has an unintended effect on somewhere else, but.
When did the people vote last time? And what was the vote?
That was,
It was last November.
there was,
Just when?
it was the presidential election, November of 16. And the vote was,
54%.
it was yes was 1,941, no was 1,689, and 111 blanks.
So the town already voted, and they made their decision. Why are we revisiting this? That's a question I have. I mean, it's,
Well, I think it's two things. I think that when it was on the ballot, it was to legalize marijuana. So now it's come to the point where people are putting establishments, businesses and things in towns and cities. And you've seen throughout the state, many towns and cities have said, okay, that's fine, we don't have a problem with it being legal in the state, we just don't want it sold in our city or our town. So I think that's where we are with that. And I think that's, not we, but I think that's what, as far as this year. So, to me, it's two different votes. The vote that was in November 2016 was basically the legalization of marijuana in the state, and this is whether people want it sold inside their towns or cities.
I guess we're sitting on the wrong boards then, because I recall all three boards, the school committee, the planning, like, we all want more revenues in town. I mean, my view on the situation is if we have alcohol in town and that's regulated, shall we now not sign liquor licenses because of somebody's feelings? I mean, my view on the situation is that if you want a liquor store, which I work at, not anything in town, but when you're turning around and you're talking about regulations and stuff of that nature, my view on the situation is right now, we have a community that is bedroom, we have one that's farming. The town has the ability to benefit from it. I know there are negatives to it. I'm not an advocate, but I'm not opposed, due to the fact we are a community that has all these farms of cultivating and benefiting some way, shape, or form from the revenues. That's my feelings.
Well, it's up to a 3% SI's tax, if you will, sales tax on it.
No, I know it's
So-
minuscule. It's not that big of a revenue.
But to give people the
It's not a cash
idea,
cow.
right, so if a business does $1,000, $100,000 a year in revenue, that's 3%. And it's not, to me, that's not, enough to me to say that, and I said it before and I'll say it again, I'm not in favor of it being sold in our town or processed in our town. Totally different when it comes to someone's home growth and something like that, but as far as business, I'm not in favor of it. And that's I go based on, there is a tax involved in it, but again, it's a 5-year tax. After 5 years, does that go away?
The host community agreement, 3%, or up to 3%, what, the sales tax does not go away.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, the people have already voted yes. If we want to put any restrictions in place, such as the zoning and the planning board says, we should put the restrictions in place because the people currently said yes. And we need those protections to protect the sites where those businesses may be in the future if the people don't turn it down. Because if we don't put those zoning restrictions in place today, we won't have a choice later. Correct, Al? As far as zoning.
Well, if you're asking me,
If we don't approve
I
these,
wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that
Okay.
you don't have the opportunity to do it. I said the problem that you run into without either a ban or the regulations is anything that comes in the interim
it happens.
happens. It doesn't mean that you couldn't change it down the road. For instance, the town could have regulations today. Could put regulations in today, whether that's zoning or a ban, and 6 months from now, change that.
That's right.
Nothing's stopping that. Either way, whether you're talking ban or you're talking regulations, or you're talking nothing at all. But what happens in between there, you're stuck with.
You got pre-existing. So if we don't put these zoning regulations into play today, come 30 November, we would not have those restrictions in place.
Which is why the marijuana ad hoc committee is suggesting that two-pronged approach of give the people the right to vote. If they want to have it regulated, they have the power. Any way you look at it, the power is with the voters.
Exactly,
It's not my decision, it's not necessarily the board's decision, it's the voters' decision. The
exactly.
only way to protect the town completely is to be prepared for either scenario. So if all we do is put forward a ban and don't prepare for
A yes vote.
zoning regulations, and it goes away, then there's a problem. And it works the other way as well. If all we do is plan to regulate, then let's just say there's a bunch of people who feel strongly that they don't want it in town, and they vote down the regulations, and we're not prepared for a ban, we're in the same scenario with nothing. No regulations and zero benefit. That's why the marijuana ad hoc committee proposed, along with the planning board, what we did.
And I agree with that. I mean, currently, we need to put regulations in place to control the commercial use of marijuana because in the past, the town did vote yes. We have to put those regulations in place. Am I against them voting again to decide yes or no? No, I'm not against it. The people can make their own choice. Because if, like you said, we ban it today, and then all of a sudden, this board can't ban it. Only the people can. So the main thing for us to do today is to put these zoning bylaws into place to protect the town from any commercial marijuana, because the town said yes. Now, if the people choose to change their mind, they can change their mind. That's up to them. But we need to protect the town and the schools today under the current situation. And then, yes, I think we should have another vote to see, now that the people have had time since 2016 to understand the ramifications and the magnitude of all these different things. Because look how far it's taken the state to even come up with these regulations. The average person is still wondering what's going on. And it's our job to protect the residents of Granby. So I would make a motion to pass the zoning, the planning board's bylaws, to put them into place for,
We're not doing that.
or not-
You can't do that.
okay.
Only town meeting can do that.
Right, but I'm just thinking to go forward with it.
Well, I think we're addressing right now, Jay, is whether or not, I think we want to move forward with this being an election on a ballot, either yes or no. After that election's done, I think at that point, the town will know which way to move forward. If it's a yes vote as to ban it, then we'll go a certain direction. If it's a no vote, then we're going to go down the other direction as far as coming up with the zoning and bringing that up to the town to change the bylaws.
As long as we have the bylaws in place to protect the residents in case they say yes, I am in for that.
Well, we definitely will. That's the next down the road.
Can I just make a couple comments? We are scheduling the special election on the 20th.
20th of
August.
Okay,
We are planning on scheduling a special town meeting on Monday, August 27th.
okay,
One week after that. On the warrant for the special town meeting, we are going to have 2 articles. 1, to ban. 2, to regulate. We were looking at this, we have 7 days to find out how the town people feel, whether to address the ban or to table permanently the ban and address the regulation, or to address the ban and table the regulation. Okay? This is what we're trying to do,
okay.
because we can't accept the ban at town meeting if that vote doesn't occur. Because the original vote was
Yes.
in the town of Granby.
Mhm.
Okay? So, if we don't hold that, we can only bring forward regulation. We cannot bring forward ban. And I believe there's been a few people who have been out there saying they really didn't understand what they were voting for back in November of 2016.
Mhm.
Now that they have seen what's happening across the Commonwealth regarding this, they now want to maybe have the ability to
Make a better
vote on
judgment.
this again,
Yes.
okay, based upon everything they've been hearing going on across.
And I think the people should have a chance to vote on this again before the regulations go into play.
So at this point, I'm going to make a motion that the Select Board approve and send to Ms. Kelly Regan the following, to schedule a special election for Monday, August 20th, 2018, to address the following question. Shall the town prohibit the operation of all types of marijuana establishments as defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 94G, Section 1, including marijuana cultivators, marijuana testing facilities, marijuana product manufacturers, marijuana retailers, or any other type of licensed marijuana-related businesses within the town of Granby.
Okay, I will second Glenn's motion to have another vote on marijuana.
Great difficulty.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All
All those
opposed?
against? Aye.
What's that?
Now that you've scheduled the special election, the town clerk had forwarded a letter dated July 5th, whereby she is recommending that the election hours be from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. And the reason for that is what she has found with local elections that have been held during the summer, is that 7 hours is a sufficient amount of time for the voters to get out to vote. Remember that absentee ballots will be ready within 2 weeks after she receives notification from the board. And that will give the voters nearly 1 month to process an absentee ballot if they were to be away on vacation. Therefore, to help defer the cost to run this election, it is her suggestion that the election be held from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m.
I'll go back to what I suggested before. I think it's being fair to everybody. I understand that there's an additional cost with it, but since the school's already open at that point, we are doing an election. I would like to see it stay from 7 to 7.
But this is from summer vacation, so people will not be dropping their kids off at the schools like you have.
But the school will be open. It does gives people the opportunity. And to me, something that we were talking about, even here amongst ourselves, as far as discussion, that it's important to the town. I think giving an extra several hours to the town to come out and vote, I don't think is asking too much.
I'm just saying, based upon her history and records of other votes that occurred, very few people come out before 10 a.m. Majority come out between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m.
My opinion is that the person doesn't have the opportunity to vote because they couldn't make it that particular time.
But you have the absentee ballots that are available 1 month before the actual vote.
And sometimes things happen, people plan on being there, and they get called into work or what have you, so that's where
I'm just
I
saying,
know, I know.
I'm putting out that, you know, it's fine that you want to hold it from 7 to 7 or 7 to 8 or whatever, but the issue is it why hold hours if nobody's going to show
Show
up? And that's my biggest concern.
And
That's all.
I agree with that. I think we should limit
to
the
have
hours.
extended hours.
No, there's no need for this.
You know, we got absentee ballots. She's got, you know, data here that shows that very few people come out before 10 a.m. And 9 times out of 10, if you look at it, you know, May, 3 of them she has are in May, school is still in effect. So, yeah, some people will come out if they have to drop their kids off in that location. I agree with you on that, Glenn, if school is in session. But with school not being in session and it being in the middle of the summer, a lot of people will be away on vacation, they'll be doing other things, and it's gonna be a last-minute thing that they're gonna remember to go vote.
Which would help if the polls were open longer. I hear what everybody's saying. My thing is this, to me, people having the opportunity to vote is very important. And extending that several hours, to me, is not a whole lot of big deal.
And if they're sincere about voting, they will make it.
Or they will get an absentee ballot. And most people now, a lot, according to Kathy Kelly Regan, are getting an absentee ballot just to do it anyways.
Concerned with the 1 or 2 people that may or may not. And I think, as I
Well,
said,
then they're
so
not concerned enough to get to the polls to voice their opinion.
things happen. People-
Well, yes,
situations
things do
people can't
happen.
make it.
Somebody can die, but that doesn't mean, you know, you're turning around and holding extended hours needlessly.
Well, just so we're clear, and it's not saying they're extended hours. It's not like we're making something that's above normal operations. Well, it's not, because most of our time, our town elections are from 7 to 7. So it's not really considering extended hours. It's not like we're doing something outside the norm. So,
If the record shows the majority of the people come from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. in the summertime with absentee ballots available, I don't see anything wrong with that at all. Why should the town be paying all this extra money for 1 or 2 people to come in when they can either get an absentee ballot or they could just come in and vote? There's no reason to have the long hours for the amount of people.
We don't need the extended hours.
What is the period of time you would like the polls open from?
You said 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., Chris, that's fine.
That's when Kathy says the majority of the vote, she's recommending 7 to 12, but 12 to 7. The issue is she says, when she gave her statistics regarding other votes, the majority voted after 10 a.m. and before 7 p.m. So do you want to make it 10 to 7? Do you want to make it 12 to 7? Do you want to make it 10 to 8? Do you want to make it 12 to 8? I don't know what you want to do.
I'll make a motion from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m.
I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so 10 to 7. Okay, and then, like I said, we will be addressing a special town meeting warrant. I'll get together with you to work on that too, Al. At our August 4th meeting, is that the first Monday in August?
I believe so.
August 6th meeting. Monday, August 6th is when we would sign the special town meeting warrant for Monday, August 27th, 2018. And based upon that schedule, that would give Kathy Kelly Reagan 4 days to get everything together into the AG's office for the September 1st deadline for their 90-day period that they have to consider.
Chris, and can you check with Kathy in regards to the additional cost for future? You know, I'd like to know that, because we're throwing out, you know, it's gonna cost the town X amount more dollars So-
New business information?
It's not much. $500.
We already did the 7 department reports?
Yes.
Did all that?
If I may,
Yep.
I'd like a motion to adjourn.
All right, go for it.
Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion and wrap it up to the planning board to, at this time, adjourn.
Second,
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next thing on having your agenda is a firm appointments.
Yes.
Chief Mitchell is here to present.
Good evening.
Someone.
So the department has been out recruiting, trying to bring in more people to the department as in the fire service in general, we're seeing a reduction in call volunteers. However, our recruitment efforts have proven to be quite effective. This evening, I am asking the board to approve the appointments of 2 individuals. John Jack Sarnacki of Cold Hill Drive, Granby. He unfortunately couldn't be here this evening as he's working. And Mr. Brad Harrington of Jennifer Drive here in Granby. These 2 are currently set to go with the approval of the board, and after that, we've got about 3 or 4 more on deck, ready to come on board.
What number is that?
11.
Right down the street? Okay. We live in the
All
same
trained,
street.
Ready to go?
They're not trained, but they're going to be coming on board and working through the process of getting their training, familiarization on the department, the policies and procedures, the apparatus and equipment.
His
So-
background?
Springfield Water and Sewer, construction inspector.
Will you be asking them to go to the academy for any special training?
All candidates coming on board are going to be asked to attend the Massachusetts Call Volunteer Academy. We, however, know that it is a significant obligation to meet, so we have means to get them the training that we need them to have in order to operate as firefighters, EMTs. But we certainly always encourage that they attend the state certification course. It helps the department have stronger, more proficient, more skilled firefighters.
Are you looking to become a EMT paramedic later, or just a firefighter? Just,
At this time, I'm not sure,
okay,
potentially.
just try one step at a time.
Yep.
Okay. I'll make a motion to accept the 2 gentlemen, the fire chief named as appointed to the fire department.
Let's call for this number.
Yes.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
Appointment effective today?
today.
So you're on today. That means you're buying the beer.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Brad. Thank you. Congratulations.
Yeah, I've known Brad since before he was born. That's a long time. Boy, it makes me feel real old. Let me
I know, that's
no, his parents moved in before the children were born. He lives right down the street from me. That's why I was surprised to see him. I didn't know he was going for it. I didn't know.
And the last item on the agenda is the Meta grant.
Ah, yes.
You're up, Jay.
I'm up. Okay. We have here a municipal energy technical assistance grant. The Energy Committee is recommending that we apply for an alternate fuel for the junior, senior high school and East Meadow School. That school currently uses #2 fuel oil. We would like to use this grant at a no cost to the town to see if there's an alternative fuel, not to only lower our carbon emissions, but the school energy bill is approximately 20% of the entire energy bill in the whole town. So anything that we can do to make a cleaner town and save money, the Energy Committee is all for.
Sounds good to me.
And we don't have to pay for it either. All we need is your signature. And I have all the backup data if you want it.
You just received signature.
I know, yes.
That's all I need. The rest of it's in my laptop or my folder here.
Excuse me,
Yes?
can we have a motion to authorize the chairman to sign the Meta grant?
As long as I got it signed, that was fine. I will make a motion to get the Meta grant signed.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yep.
If you'd like to hand this down. Thank you.
There is another thing I'd like to bring up with the board is, I believe the planning board's going to be holding a hearing on a solar farm on Kendall Street.
Yes.
In looking at all the documents, we have a question if that piece of property is in chapter land, chapter 61A, because it looks like it has an agricultural reduction in their tax bill. If it is in a chapter land, to take it out of chapter land and allow the solar farm to be on it, the town has a right of first refusal for any all land taken out of chapter. So we may want to send a letter to the planning board asking to get clarification on what is going to happen with that land. Because before you can put something on there, if the town is interested in purchasing it, because it is a contiguous piece of property to Dufresne Park, we may want to purchase it to expand the conservation efforts of the town for that area of town.
I believe that would be a wise move for the town to do.
It would be.
Okay, so I'll draft a letter to the planning board asking for clarification regarding its chapter status prior to any approval of solar fields. Okay.
The only other thing, since we're talking solar, the Energy Committee has come forward to the Select Board before, and they asked me to bring it now, to put a moratorium on all solar farms until it's cleared up at the state level on municipalities and individuals.
How long the moratorium?
I would say 1 year. Because we all know from fiscal year to fiscal year, it takes the state that long to decide to do something.
How does that affect the town, Jay, if the town themselves wanted to move forward with it?
If the town wants to move forward with under the SMART program, every resident in town, every taxpayer or every resident in town would benefit from a municipally leased solar farm. Versus if individuals lease the land to the solar developer, only the person who owns the land would benefit from the lease.
Right, I understand that, but as far as the moratorium, that goes in effect, does that also stop the town from doing it, or just private?
That would be everybody from right now until the state decides,
Including the town.
including the town for right now. Because we need to know, just like we did with marijuana, what all the rules and conditions and the changes are doing to make a really sound decision. I mean, we can come back and we can vote and change it, revisit it at any time, but we need, after talking to the environmental and the Energy and Environmental Affairs Secretary, he submitted that there is a forthcoming change to make it more appetite for these solar developers to come to the municipalities. Right now, these solar developers are shying away from the municipalities because, number one, they got to come to a public hearing like this. Then they got to go to a special town meeting where the people will vote before they could enter an agreement with the town. If these solar developers have a choice, they much rather go to a private landowner and set it up in the town, then that private landowner would receive all the revenue. If we do it as a municipality, then every resident in the town will benefit from it.
Well, let me put it this way. I'm in favor of a moratorium based on, I know a lot of people have had concerns as far as the solar farms going up in different areas and didn't realize the impact, a few years ago when the bylaws were changed governing such things, but those also play a factor into what grants the town receives as well, as far as being a green community.
No, as long as we keep in our town, and I'm talking a moratorium on solar farms 250 kWs and above. I am not talking the ones that's allowed by right in the town.
No, I understand it, but then again, I look at, what if you were waiting, so here's the other side of it, is that we want to put a moratorium so the town can benefit, but not the private citizen can benefit?
I would say the answer to that is yes.
So that's what I have a concern with, because I think the town has just as much right to it as the private citizen or landowner in town should have.
I'm looking for the better good of the majority of the people than versus an individual. We can only, with the lines and cables and substations, only so much electricity can be produced per square mile. Would you rather have that go to individuals, or would you rather have it go to everybody? That is the point, only point that I'm trying to make.
I don't, again, I go either way, because my thing is that the person who owns 40 acres of land should be able to do that if they wish to do it. We shouldn't be saying, well, that's not fair. The town should have the opportunity to do that, not you.
I believe the town should have first right of refusal, just like Chris brought up of the lands that abuts Dufresne Park. Whatever is best for the
It's totally
town.
different. That's under chapter 61A.
That's right, I understand that, but still, it's the same principle that whatever benefits the majority of the town is better than what benefits one person.
I think that's what Chris was saying, but, no, I'm not, like I said, I'm in favor as far as giving people more time to really understand everything, because I know, recently I got a lot of calls in regards to the solar farm that's being proposed on Kendall Street in regards to that, and people don't realize, well, when they changed the bylaws allowing this, I said, well, several years ago it was changed. And, so sometimes people don't realize that, and so after the fact, they're realizing it now that they see the solar farms popping up in different areas.
Well, they're going to have the same realization when it comes to the marijuana bylaws as well.
Well, hence the
I think,
town election.
That's why I agreed with you on that.
I think a moratorium for a year isn't gonna really hinder anything until things are sorted out
At the state level.
at the yes. I really don't think it's gonna make that big of a difference.
Then I'll make a motion that we put a moratorium on solar installations above 250 kW for 1 year on all solar fields in the town of Granby.
So we understand though too, that, just as far as discussion, Steve, that when someone does, a private business does put a solar field in town, the town does benefit. There's tax revenue that the town does receive. It can be minimal at times, but the town does benefit from certain parts of that. It's not the town doesn't get anything, because that's not the case. So,
Mr. Martin, how much does the town get from the taxes on East Street? Was it $30,000 a year?
I wouldn't know that off the top of my head.
Okay, I thought it was, that figure was
We
discussed.
have pilot payments.
Right, I understand.
but
That's a different
pilot
agreement.
payments that we get
Right,
because they built in the town. However, I don't know what the tax bill is
right.
for those.
Mhm.
Because while the land is exempt because it's held by a government agency,
Right,
the property on it is subject to taxation.
right.
it's a little
Just,
different than-
Mm-hmm.
like Dickinson's farm.
Yes. Okay, and that's why it would be very difficult just to say what it is off the top of my head.
Okay. But I know it's minimum amount of money from being on the planning board that the town benefits from the property taxes when it's changed over, because the town only receives money for the amount of the structure on the town. And if you're talking a 9-inch footing, that's all the town receives for, is that 9 inches. It's not like you build a house that 2,000 square feet.
Usually the pilots that we get are based on 12,000 per megawatt.
Right.
So if we have a 650 kilowatt array, it's 650 divided by 1,000 times 12,000 is what we get per year. It could be around 9,000.
So there is, again, so.
There
there's
is some
there's some
benefit,
benefits
yes.
there, yes.
But the
absolutely.
problem is pilot agreements expire in 20 years. So you have it for a 20-year period of time.
But just the point I'm making, I don't want people to think that the town doesn't benefit from a private landowner having a solar farm on their land, because the town does benefit from it. So does the landowner at that
All I'm
point.
stating is, if the town leased the land to the developer, the taxpayers in the town would benefit from more revenue than an individual leasing the same amount of land to a solar developer.
I agree. I think that's
And right now, we need revenue in the town of Granby, so that's why I'm saying that we should go in that direction.
Question.
Sure,
You are proposing a moratorium effective when?
immediately.
How would that affect the applicant going in front of the planning board that already has a hearing scheduled?
Well, if the moratorium goes in effective immediately, then we don't allow any more immediately.
I have a problem because they've already got a financial commitment in there.
I don't know if we can do that. I don't know if they'd be, if you will, grandfathered in, because they've always started, and this is something that's being done after. I don't know if we can go back and say, sorry, you can't do it now.
Well, the thing of it is also, the individual that's going before the planning board has not been approved.
Yeah, but I don't know.
The way that it works as far as the special permit goes, the applicant has to prove and show the special permit is applicable to the town. The town can refuse the special permit. The town doesn't have to prove a reason not to give the permit.
The question I'm asking, Jay, is, as part of the application process, was this person required to expend monies as part of this hearing process that now you're saying, oh, tough luck, we decided to do a moratorium, or is that money going to have to be refunded back to that individual?
Well, I would ask Glenn, how far has the process gone forth on the money? Is it just the abutters amount of money that has been sent out for the public hearing?
Off the top of my head, Jay, I don't know without looking at it, but money has been paid as far as that. There is a public hearing that's been scheduled for July 23rd as well in regards to this. Personally, I like to get more knowledge and information as to what you're talking about, as far as what the state is talking about, as far as a moratorium, instead of just kind of rushing right into it today and making that decision.
Well, this is not a rush. The Energy Committee put it before the prior Select Board in October and November of last year, and the prior Select Board chose to table it and not address it.
As I'm saying right now, I would like to have more information brought forward, at least for myself, so I can see what we're talking about. As you said, as far as regulations that the state's dealing with, well, I'd like to see what those things are instead of just voting on something. So I know you have a motion for it. At this point, I'm not ready to second the motion just based on, I'd like to have more information. Not to say down the road, Jay, our next meeting, if we have the information that I can read, and just for more knowledge from my point of view, so I feel more comfortable making that decision.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm also thinking of the cost of the current applicant. The longer we drag this out, the more it could cost the current applicant.
Well, so be it. I mean, I don't think that's applicable to the current, applicant. Because it's already undergoing. That is going to create a lot more problems. If we have an applicant already and they're in a process, I don't think it's fair to them that they just, you know, okay, we pull the rug from underneath them right now at that process.
So if you don't want to second it, nobody wants to vote it, I'll still stand by my motion, and then it won't get seconded, and then,
I think they're looking for some sort of amendment to your motion.
Yeah.
Not to
Okay.
make it effective immediately, but to exclude any fields that are currently in the hearing process. Something of that nature.
I still want more information. I mean, just based on, for my own knowledge.
the basic, what's going to change is, that right now, there's no requirement under the SMART program for a solar developer to go to a private landowner or a municipality. What they're looking at doing is carving out a piece of the pie specifically for municipalities, because municipalities are being left in the rear for the simple reason nobody wants to go through the process of the public hearings and the special town meetings. They rather deal with one person and one person only, and then go to the planning board. There's a lot more intensive process if it's going to go on town-owned land.
True, but there's also town hearing, there's a public hearing for a planning board. So,
I'm not denying that, and that's the 23rd, and if it doesn't pass here tonight, I plan on being there at the 23rd.
I know, and sitting on the planning board when, Cursard, is that who they did?
Sounds it.
Yeah, when they came, Cursard, right, when they sat in front of us, meaning planning board, and we had a public hearing, there's a lot of people came out, a lot of information was divulged at that piece too, and a lot of things were discussed, so, I don't want people to think that it's just a cakewalk, because if they go the other route, because I really didn't think it was. And I think they would probably disagree with that point as well.
Well, if you want to do it, we can do it this way. I'll make an amendment to my motion for a moratorium for a year, less the one applicant that's applied, and then I can make my feelings notice as far as the populace at the planning board public hearing, and let everybody know that way.
I'm just going to go over, I still want to see the information that
I can't give you something that the state hasn't produced yet, just like Al couldn't give you stuff that the marijuana people hadn't produced until they did.
But somewhere, somehow, this must be written down what the state's planning on doing, or there's no information out there besides what you're saying. You received information from somewhere, Jay?
Yeah, the Massachusetts Energy and Environmental Affairs Secretary.
And there's nothing written down anywhere that's talking about all these.
He says it's in
Possible
their,
changes.
it's in their attorney's hands to change the agreement, to divide it up with municipalities.
So you're saying that, except for what's in front of them, moratorium for how long?
1 year.
Starting when?
We can start it now, and then that'll get us through the whole fiscal year. That'll allow the current politicians to do what they're going to do, if they're going to do anything.
And that's only on what size solar fields?
Anything above 250 kW that has not been applied for in the town of Granby, as of today.
That's the motion?
That's the motion.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain or disagree, or
I oppose.
you oppose? Okay. One opposed.
The only other topic in here is, we had received permission from the town meeting to enter into a pilot agreement with Granby Solar LLC. That's the one that's going in on the Dickinson properties. And all I need is the Board of Selectmen to sign the pilot agreement that was agreed upon by town meeting. There's 2 copies there. I don't think there's any other thing with stickers on it, is there?
No.
Okay. And that one there, we're getting 11,000 per megawatt. Because now we have SREC 2, and SREC 2 is, gives less reimbursement back to the people, so.
And that's a 4 megawatt field at Dickinson's.
Yeah.
The one on Kendall will be a 6 megawatt as is proposed.
So I can't put an 8 megawatt on my property.
Well, the problem you're gonna start running into is, I believe National Grid has concerns over their substation being able to accept that amount of power. And the fact is, are they gonna have to increase the size of the lines going down the street?
Which is true.
Okay, and at some point, if we keep having all these, over on the left-hand side. Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
1, 2, 3.
By title date.
Just do 1, 2, 3.
Just want to, it doesn't make, sign on top, I don't know.
It'll be titled.
You'll be
It'll be known as titled.
See, that's the only concern, is at some point, you're gonna be seeing large electrical power lines going down the sides.
You already are. If you go down East Street, South Street, and Route 202 through the village, you can see the size of the cables that's going through there, and they're only going to increase.
My
Yeah.
understanding, Jay, is you made a point before that, and it said that National Grid, they can't really take anything else, right? And they're not willing to upgrade it because they don't want to pay for it. Is that right?
From what I am understanding, to Bill Ikerson from National Grid today, it seems that the current person that wants to put it in Granby is willing to pay for the upgrade of the substation on their own. National Grid is not paying for it.
And that's the one on Kendall?
Yes. Because National Grid says there's plenty of municipalities out there as well as that have substation capability of accepting solar farms without National Grid investing more money. In other words, they have more applicants than they can handle, is what they're saying. So they're saying, why should I handle an applicant in a particular area, whereas I have to put money into the overhead? I will just accept the applicant from an area that I don't have to put any money in the overhead.
Right. Go to a different city or town.
And the last topic I have is that I did receive notification from the Director of Senior Services Search Committee. We did have 4 applicants who applied for the position. They interviewed all the applicants and they forwarded 3 names for further consideration by the Board of Selectmen. We need to schedule a meeting to do public interviews so that we can make our final selection.
When can we do that? What is it?
Well, it's up to you guys to decide. I don't know if you want to schedule another meeting in July that's convenient to you guys, or do it at early on the 4th, or,
I think it's prudent that we do it
As soon as possible.
I think we all agree with that.
And the position right now is open. I think it needs to be filled as soon as possible.
So, possibly next week?
you guys tell me.
How about tomorrow?
No, hold on.
No,
We have to give,
You gotta give
enough time.
notice.
Not enough time.
not enough time.
I don't.
Actually, what we should do is schedule a couple dates and then contact the applicants and see if we can get all 3 of them together on a certain date.
I agree.
Something we can do maybe next week,
I'm hoping.
maybe a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday type thing, and earlier than
Well,
later.
we can do 45-minute interviews starting at 5 or
Well, that's what I
whatever.
mean. If someone can make it all 3 days,
Yes.
great. If someone can't, then
Yeah.
we'd have to actually do 2
Okay.
different dates.
The 16th's always good for me, and the 19th. In the evening.
I have to look at my calendar, so I'll wait for your dates and then I'll go to my calendar and give them to Chris.
What time are you talking?
I would say, what, 5 o'clock?
I would
Start?
start at 5
5.
and hopefully get all 3 of them in. You know, do like a,
It's a Monday and a Thursday. I mean, next Monday,
And what was the date of the Thursday?
the
the
19th.
19th.
Don't we have an energy committee meeting that night?
You have,
And I have that meeting with the MVP people from Boston that afternoon, right?
Well, there's only 3 individuals, I mean, 45 minutes, it's
Oh, the 16th would work, I'd say let's do the 16th.
All right,
16th, okay, 16th?
16th should be no
Okay.
problem. I'll
we'll
work
start the
around that.
process by getting in touch, and if they can make it, we'll send an email out to everybody saying it's a go.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay?
The 16th. COA. 16 July. And that's going to be at 18:30.
Yes, 18:30. No.
No, 1700.
1700, okay, that's better.
Nice try.
I know, really.
I'm retired. Every day's Sunday to me.
Nice try.
Make a motion to adjourn, and we're done, right?
I will second your motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.